What up, gamers? I'm Jason Deere, and as you can clearly see, Sammy G is missing in action. That's because he's on a trip down under, and for those of you that have seen our Fog of Love video will recognize this reviewer right here, and for those of you that don't know who she is...
Hi, I'm Julie.
Yes, and today on Dice and Dragons, we are going to be reviewing Bigfoot versus Yeti, Battle of the Cryptids. I don't know whose side Julie's on, but I personally always like Bigfoot. Maybe that's because... Yeti? Well, you know, I lived in Vermont for a while. It is cold, but not as cold as Canada, so I guess that's where we got our a little bit of friction there. So we each have our teams. We're going to be checking out this game from Shoot Again Games. Big thanks to Diane Suarez for sending us this pre-release review copy, and I'll let Julie tell you a little bit about the game.
So it's a 2 to 4 player card game. Supposed to be 30 to 45 minutes. Should be easy setup, easy to pick up and play. Should be fun.
Yep. So with that being said, we're going to take it to the table and we're going to teach you how to play Bigfoot versus Yeti, Battle of the Cryptids. And as we always do here on Dice and Dragons, we'll be a little bit different today. We're going to grab our significant others, grab our drinks, and let's take it to the table. Cheers.
Cheers.
Now, before we get into the how to play, I just want to address all of these boxes you might be seeing in the background. Dice and Dragons will be moving to some new digs, so expect to see our videos being shot from a better shooting space, except if we're in Sammy G's dungeon apartment. Can't do much about that just yet. But right now, we will take a look at Bigfoot versus Yeti, Battle of the Cryptids. Let's see what comes in the box. Now, as we open the box, we of course get the rule book, which is very well done. It also has some rules for those of you that may be familiar with Shoot Again Games, other games such as Conspiracy. You have the deck of cards that we're going to need to shuffle together, and 4 player turn cards, which also carry some helpful reference cards for the 2 types of cards in the game, the action cards as well as the expedition cards. Now, how do we set it up? Well, the nice thing about the game is that if you're playing 3, 4, or 2 players, the setup's the same. All you're going to do is shuffle up the cards. And I'm not doing the best job. I got Julie giving me the old stink eye there. But it's shuffled well enough. And then you deal 10 cards to each player. Now, after that's done, the dealer is going to put this deck down, which will henceforth be known as the unknown, and flip over the top card, which is going to be known as the tabloids. Now that we've gone ahead and set up the game, we're just going to cut right here, and we'll be back with the how to play. Jason here. Now, before I send you on to the how to play, Sammy G was reviewing the rough cut of the video from Down Under, and he noticed that I forgot 1 or 2 things. So I'm just gonna give you guys some clarification right now. So the point of the game is to score 100 points. You do this by mounting your own expedition to prove that that cryptozoological creature exists, and you do that by playing a minimum of 3 cards of the same monster type. They're also color-coded, as you'll see from the cards, which makes it very easy. You can also join an existing expedition. Now, that can be your own expedition or one from another player. And the other question that Sammy G had was about strategy for the game. Is it beneficial to have a large hand or a small hand? Those of you that have played games like Gin Rummy or Crazy Eights and know that how difficult it can be to properly go out, the go out mechanic in this game is very important. So if you plan it right, having a small hand size, going out quickly means you can stick your opponent with maybe 6, 7, 8 cards, which really can work out in your favor by having them rack up a lot of negative points. Or you could be stuck in a situation where you tried to go out, didn't quite work out, and now you're stuck with 2 cards while your opponent is still racking up a lot of points. And those are just the 2 clarifications that I wanted to add to the video. Now I'm going to get out of here and send you back on to the how to play. Now we're going to take a look at how you play Bigfoot versus Yeti, Battle of the Cryptids. As you can see, we've just set up everything open-handed in front right now. For the case of this explanation, I'm actually going to be playing from the position of the second player. It's a little bit easier for me to explain how you join expeditions, which is a very big part of the game, if there's already an expedition that I could potentially join. Now, during the first player's turn, as you can see, they have mounted an expedition for sewer alligators, which I'm going to explain. They also then, at the end of their turn, are obligated to discard a card. They discarded the Mothman Expedition card. Also here, just so you guys aren't confused, I have set up the 4 action cards that are gray that can be used at the start of your turn. And as you can see, only the blurry photo here has the 3-point the notification. That's because the blurry photo can be added to an expedition. So how do these action cards work? I'm just going to review that before we actually go into the turn part of the game. So the blurry photo can be used to help mount an expedition, as I just said. You have the phenomenon, the crop circles cards, which would let you either search through the tabloid deck and draw any card, or you can draw 2 cards from the top of the unknown. You have the fishtails card. Now with the fishtails card, you're able to discard up to 3 cards. So let's say I wanted to get rid of these 3 cards here. I could discard them into the tabloids and draw 3 new cards from, well, I drew 4 by accident here, but 3 cards from the unknown. Now finally, there is the Ancient Prophecy, which was Julie's favorite way of beating me while we played. Now with the Ancient Prophecy, when you play it, you say the name of a monster. In this case, I will say Ahul, which is the pink cards. Now if I happen to get any cards that are related to the Ahul, I may just draw that. I will draw just that card. So in this case, that's what I got. I happen to get the Ahul. So I would draw the Ahul into my hand. If it had not been the Ahul, for example, let's say we'll find a card that's not an Ahul. Let's say the card that came out had been the Mothman. I would have been obligated to take all 3 of these cards into my hand. And that is how you play the Ancient Prophecy. It is very important to note that unless you are using a special ability that are on the expeditions, you may only play 1 action card during your turn. All right? Now we're going to show you what I would do as a second player on my turn. As you can see here, I've got a action card, a proof action card, and the Mothman. And I really want to mount an expedition. And during your turn, you are able to do a couple of different things. You are able to play 1 action card. You are able to mount 1 expedition or join 2 expeditions. And I just want to be clear, when you're mounting an expedition, you can still join an existing expedition. Now I've got a couple different options. Now what might seem like the best thing to do would be to just draw the Mothman and mount my own expedition, and I can definitely do that. So if I pick the Mothman card up from the tabloids, because at the start of my turn I have the option to take the top card from the tabloids or the top card from the unknown, I could then play 3 cards. To mount an expedition, you have to have a minimum of 3 cards. As I'm playing 1 action card with the proof, this would be my turn. I've now mounted my Mothman expedition. And that would then be my turn. But I'm also able to use, don't forget, the special ability from the Mothman expedition, which means I could take a look at the top 3 cards of the deck and then draw 1 into my hand. In this case, it's quite interesting because we got sewer alligators, extraterrestrial, and the Mothman. Now, if I wanted to use the Mothman special ability again, I could take this one into my hand and then put these back in any order. But I may actually want to take the sewer alligators because I could then use that on my next turn to join the expedition that is existing, and I would then be able to use the sewer alligators special ability. Now, during your turn, you're going to keep going back and forth. You're going to play your expeditions, mount your expeditions, and always you have to discard a card at the end of your turn. Now, once one player has no cards left and makes the required discard, that would be the end of the round and you go into scoring. What I'm going to do is we're going to take a look at Bigfoot versus Yeti because there's a special mechanic for Bigfoot versus Yeti during scoring. And after we cover scoring, we're going to get to our review of the game. Now let's take a look at the Bigfoot versus Yeti mechanic as well as scoring. So I've taken a Yeti expedition card and a Bigfoot expedition card and I've separated them. Now whenever you mount a Yeti or a Bigfoot expedition, you are able to steal one of these dual Yeti / Bigfoot expedition cards or Bigfoot / Yeti cards depending on your point of view at the time and add them to your expedition. So in this example, let's say that the Yeti expedition had just been mounted. You could essentially steal the card from the other player, any other player by the way, if you're playing 3 or 4, and add it to your expedition. Now, the reason why that is very important is because when there are competing expeditions, one for Bigfoot and one for Yeti, the expedition that scores the highest, and as you can see right here, just from the sheer amount of cards and also the points on the cards, Bigfoot has scored more than Yeti, and Yeti would be knocked out. Now, how do we score? Well, the first thing you're going to do is when the player goes out. So in this case, for this scenario, player 2 was the one that went out. The player that is stuck with extra cards in their hands, such in this case, you've got the proof for the Jersey Devil and the crop circles. You take negative points based on the points on the card. So you will take 0 negative points for the crop circles, but negative 4 points for the Devil's Skull. The other thing you're going to do is you're going to take a look at the tabloids and you're going to separate the cards by color. And we'll just do this quickly. So in the tabloids, as you can see, there are 3 alien cards. There's 1 Bigfoot versus Yeti. And these cards right here, we don't really need to count because no one has mounted an expedition for these cards types. But what you would do in this case is the player that has these cards, like the most of these cards, but essentially gets some negative. So for the extraterrestrials, poof, they're all gone. And we have this Bigfoot versus Yeti card. This hurts the largest expedition, which would be player 2's expedition. This card is essentially gone. Now you score, so you add up all the number of points on the card. And then if there's any expedition that has 10 or more points, that expedition scores double. Right now, the only one is the Bigfoot expedition, which has a total of 7, 9, 11 points. So that would be worth 22. As that expedition scored higher, the Yeti expedition is essentially knocked out. Player 1 would actually only score 8 points for their sewer alligators, while player 2 has got their 22 points from the Bigfoot expedition, 8 points from their Loch Ness, and then another 8 points from their Mothman expedition. Now, after you score, you shuffle all the cards up together. You would redeal 10 cards and you restart, and gameplay continues in this fashion until you've reached up to 100 points. And that's how you play the game, Bigfoot versus Yeti, Battle of the Cryptids, and stay tuned for our review. Bigfoot versus Yeti, Battle of the Cryptids. What did you think of the game?
Yeti won, told you.
Yes, you called it. The Yeti definitely soundly defeated Bigfoot. But tell us more about your thoughts on the game.
I really liked it. Fast game, card game. Like you've alluded to, I like card games.
Yes.
I love the fact that it's sci-fi, scary monsters, cryptids, and swamp alligators, and so it must be the X-File in me, but I really like that aspect. I like the fact that I beat you soundly 4 times.
Yes, she finally took at least what she's told me is only a small measure of her revenge for me blowing up her Death Star and beating her in Rebellion.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. I mean, I thought at one point I got a little worried because I had a lot of cards and you were down to like 2 cards.
Yes.
But and you can talk to that. But I ended up scoring more points just because you got stuck with your 2 cards.
Yeah, I got stuck with my 2 cards, and that's where I think we both agree there's a little bit of drawbacks, is that when you're playing 2 players, we didn't really see as much of a variety of expeditions as we would have liked. You often get a good sense of what the other player has in their hand, which is the same with any type of 2-player card game, whether it's Crazy 8s, you're playing A-Hole, or anything like that. there is some things that we weren't really all that happy with. And I do think it would be nice to have maybe a little bit more of a two-player variant to the game where some things play differently. Maybe you can go out a little bit faster, put pressure on the other player. But then, as Julie's pointed out to me, that's part of the strategy to not be stuck with just 2 or 3 cards in your hand and not being able to get any momentum. But do you think it would have been different with 3 players or 4 players?
I think even adding a third player would add a little bit of randomness or a little bit of a buffer when you're discarding a card, because sometimes it's like, yeah, I don't necessarily want him to have that card, but I want to get rid of a card and I'm holding a set. So if there's a third person, or it would help, and 4 people would probably be ideal. And that's probably how the designers really, hoped it for. But it's still, I mean, we'll get to it in the score, but I still really like the 2-player game.
No, exactly. It's a good 2-player game. And we're just highlighting the fact that it's, like, as I'm probably just repeating myself slightly, it suffers from the drawbacks of any 2-player card game that's going to be, like, hand-based when you can get a feel and learn what the other player has. One thing that we didn't really get to experience in 2 players, and part of it's the luck of the draw, was we didn't really get to experience that Bigfoot versus Yeti mechanic, something that we probably would have experienced in a 3 to 4 player game. But it is a really fun game. It's a game that you can take out at parties. It's easy for people to learn. It suggests that 12 and up. I think you could even teach 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds. This is something that is probably a lot better for the whole family than is listed. But you never know. If your kids don't like scary monsters, then maybe it's not for them. So just keep that in mind. And we'll move on to scoring. So Julie, give us your score.
Solid 8 out of 10.
I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 because I am not a big fan of randomness in games. And I really got hurt by the randomness, really being stuck with 2 cards a couple times, and that's part of my own mistake. I didn't really like that. I wish there was sort of something to break out of that, but when I could have really used that Ancient Prophecy card, you know who got it?
Every time. Just luck of the draw.
Yes, just luck of the draw. And with that being said, we're going to grab our drinks, and since it's not Sammy G, I'm going to be grabbing my significant other, and we'll let her take you out this time.
Keep playing games.
You just love the fact that you won, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Remember, guys, they're usually right, except when you can actually beat them. And cherish it, because, when you win, they're never going to let you forget it.
Hey, thanks very much for watching, guys. If you like what you saw, as always, please comment, please subscribe. Won't cost you any gold, XP, willpower, nothing. It doesn't cost you anything.
Yes, and if you'd like to follow us to get some more information about when there'll be some new videos and what our upcoming content might be, please follow us on Twitter at dice_and_dragons. You can find us on Facebook at Dice and Dragons Games. We like to interact with our fans, so please head on over and comment. And then you can see some pictures as to maybe what game's coming up at Dice and Dragons on Instagram. And if that's a little bit complicated, don't worry. We included all that information down below in the video description.
So you might see about now some other links to our other content. It's, again, free for you guys. We love what we do. And as always, grab a drink, grab your buddy, keep playing games.
Keep playing games.